Hi. Well, how are we all doing? Anything happened since last week? Holy sheep shit. Coffee's a little sweet today. It's by accident. I used creamer in it that's already pre-sweetened, and I also put agave in there, so it's a little bonkers, but who knows? Maybe it'll make for an interesting show. Oh, who we got in the house here? We're an intimate crowd this morning so far. Ben Coombs. What's up, man? John's here. Joe's here. Terry's here. Mike's here. Tom's here. Oh, man. All right. What happened in the seemingly not so important as far as world events goes, World of Guitar this week? Nice gentleman dropped by from Montreal and brought this by. This is the Irvine's Fuzz from Screwed Circuits. I'm making a video for it. He, a little while ago, I can't remember the name of the pedal, but it's like an all-wood box, kind of a great big fuzz that he made, and it was really cool. I did a video for that, so he thought, I'll have him do another video for this pedal. This is really nice. I used it actually in the video that I'm making for this fine pedal, which is way overdue. Sorry, Drybell. But it's the Vibe Machine version 3. This is a Vibe style pedal. They make great vibes in an enclosure that's about the size of a Phase 90, but sounds chewy and, it's analog and delicious and wonderful. So hailing all the way from Croatia. So I used both of these together in the video for this pedal. I got a really nice sound, I think, in the video using my new Sur guitar. And I used the SL68, but in a way that, probably most people wouldn't. I mean, it's not an uncommon way to use them, I guess, but most people crank up Marshalls. And instead, I used it in much more of a clean, blended. So I had the normal channel up on about 4 and, jumpered the treble channel just on like 2, using the neck pickup on the guitar and with the tone controls way down. For those that don't know, on a 4-hole Marshall, if you keep the tone controls low, it really helps clean them up, especially the mids. So you can turn the mids down to like 2 and it'll get way more Fendery. I mean, for lack of a better, term. The mids, there's mids, but it also has the effect of kind of lifting the EQ the more you out of the way of the circuit, because the EQ is lossy on a Marshall. It's passive, and you're just subtracting things when you turn down the EQ basically from when it's on 10. So especially that mid-range control, if you turn it way down, the amp will get noticeably cleaner. So if you're having trouble with headroom on your 1987X or your 1959 or something, you're like, I can never get it quite clean. Just check out how clean it is if you put all the tone controls on like 2. It really helps, as well as you lose a little gain when you jumper channels, so that helps if you're looking for clean sound. So anyway, long story short, I got a really nice sound. I think put a little compression after the microphones. Used at my old Marshall cabinet. I had a 160 DBX 160 style compression plug-in version, but it sounds great on both mics, and just got this really nice clean tone. A little bit of verb, lovely. Yeah, Marshalls can be clean. It's true. BC Rich is happy Sunday, everyone. Mostly lurking. Well, shimming a bass nut and bass ramp. Cool. It's got an aluminum and graphite neck. Yeah, that sounds like a bit of a trickier adjustment than it would be if it was a typical, P bass or something. Christian's here from Philadelphia. We got Jerry, we got Lawrence, we got Kyle. Great to see all you guys. Awesome. Let's see. Just ordered a quad Cortex today after your last video. Cool. Very useful device. I hope you enjoy it. I really like mine. And Ryan says, hope you're in better health. Yeah, I finally got over I'm still got a little residual coughing crap, but it's basically gone now. It's just, for me, when I get sick, I don't know about you guys, but it lingers. It just like kind of, like the inflammation, and if I get an upper respiratory thing, it just seems like it hangs around even after it's long gone. The symptoms, I'll cough for a while, that kind of thing. So, yeah. Yep. El Rondo says, disturbed by war on my continent, just 800 miles from me. Yeah, man, I feel that. We all do. And you guys closer to it, even more so, right? Man. Tom says that he found a PT-15 cabinet, and it took him a while. Yeah, there's, they can be tough to find out there in the wild, but they're out there. Humbucker music's always a good resource, I find. They always seem to have stuff on order, at least, or in stock. So, but there's lots of great shops out there that you should be able to find them at. What speakers should I put in my Marshall DSL-40 to get a Halen or AC/DC sound? A DSL-40, I don't know what they come with. Do they come with a V30 or something? Which doesn't really sound like either of those to me. I would probably put a Creamback H. The red back is nice too. It's a 150 watt speaker, so it'll work in a combo. But the 75 watt Creamback H would probably be my choice. It's not exactly, AC/DC I think used kind of probably G12H30. I think Van Halen did too at times, probably. I don't think he was strictly greenbacks. It's hard to say, but I'm sure he used cabs with old 30s in them at times, probably. But yeah, G12H75. The 65 is okay, but it's not my favorite. So I would go for either that, or if you want to go Scumbag or something, maybe you could try like an M75 65 watt version. That would work well too. Have I tried the Binson Echo Rec plugin? I have not. Would like to. Generally for delay, for plugin, I use Sound Toys. Echo, what's it called? Delay. I can't remember the name of it, but the Sound Toys stuff is amazing, and their delays are Echo Boy, isn't that what it's called? I think. I don't know. I have it in my DAW, like on my template, and I have two. I've got like an analog style mono delay and a stereo split ping pong set up on two different sends that just pulls up in my template when I start a new Logic session. So I use that a lot because it can kind of do just about any sound. But that said, I'm always into trying new plugins. There's tons out there. Do you do your own teching on the road? Do you and most guys still use nut and saddle lube? I do, yeah. I use either the big bands or the D'Addario stuff generally. John generally on my Surs, I have him cut the nut because he just does an exceptional job. But I will say on my guitars, on my signature guitar and Surs in general, the cut of the nut is really important for keeping the guitar in tune. And it's even me. John cuts the nuts personally and stuff for me sometimes, but I'll still have to go to him sometimes and say, "Can you look at the E string on this guitar because it's going sharp?" So with my tremolo bridge, the nut is still a point of friction, and the nut being cut just right is so important for, especially on the low E string with the Wilkinson tremolo. It has to be just right, and if it's just right, you can get it to where you can drop the bar, do pretty dive bomby stuff, and it'll come back basically generally in tune all the time. If it's not just right, it comes back sharp, and that drives me a little bonkers sometimes. So I'm picky about it, but once you get it, it's great. It's just kind of finicky, the adjustment. That's all. And nut lube can help. Certainly that nut lube stuff like the D'Addario or the big bands can work great on Les Pauls, or there's still no substitute for a properly cut nut though. If you're having problems where the G string's always going out of tune or something like that, or the D string, popping where you tune up and then it pops past and then it goes sharp and you're like, damn it, and then you got to go back down and tune it up again. Have a good tech look at the nut on the guitar and just try and massage it in, it's got to be cut just so. Thanks for doing this. Any tip for reaching that vintage Van Halen sound with the EVH 5150 EL34 50 watt? You know, I'm not super familiar with all the different EVH models, and I know they changed circuit over time. And when I had my 5150, it was the original 606 version, and the trick for the early Van Halen sound was channel 2. So I would assume it's probably still that, because channel 3 has tons of gain. So channel 2 seemed to be the way to go, the blue channel. And I don't really remember. I mean, beyond that, I remember I used to run the presence kind of high, like maybe around 6, 7.5 on the dial, something like that. I did be up past noon, that's for sure. And tone controls, I mean, I probably had the mids cut a little bit below half, and then the bass and treble up above half a ways, like on, kind of like 4 and 6 for the respective controls. But yeah, that's about it. I mean, and try and use as least gain as you possibly can, because the least preamp gain that you can get away with, like always more volume and less gain, will get you more into the realm of it sounding kind of wild and less compressed, So, the least gain you can get away with on that amp, it's going to sound closer, I think. But, that said, John's making fun of me. He says, Pete running an amp bright? No way. Well, that's those sounds. They were bright. They were friggin' bright. How do you get your spud dressed at the baked potato, salt and butter? Dude, I do some of the crazy ones. I actually really like the baked potatoes at the baked potato. I'll do the there's like a chicken parm one, I think. I'll go for the crazy ones. I don't have like a specific, but that one, I mean, yeah, that sounds good. Chicken parmesan. I like stuff on my baked potatoes, so I don't like them too basic. By the way, in England, they call them a jacket potato. And you can get a really good one at the Weatherspoons, which is just the run-of-the-mill, the cheap pub that's everywhere in every town in the UK. Weatherspoons. They built these pubs in like old, nice, free houses, or sometimes in like churches, or like different. There's like pubs built in them now, and like beautiful old spaces. But their whole sort of mode of operation is cheap booze, lots of it, lots of variety, and no music. So they don't have any entertainment or anything, and they can kind of keep the cost down, because it's just like basic pub food and beer and cider, basically. And so those are the Weatherspoons. They're everywhere in England. And but some of the food is actually kind of like for lunch, like the tuna mayo jacket potato comes with a little salad, and it's a baked potato basically with tuna mayo concoction and probably butter or whatever, and it's like $5 or something, super cheap. So I did that more than a few times while I was in the UK. Anyway, baked potato. The Modern Vintage was also asking me if I do my own teching. No, I have a tech, generally speaking. I mean, I've done it in recent times. I mean, when I went to go do this thing I did in Wisconsin recently, which was a play, I didn't have a guitar tech for that. Or when I went to do the Mitch Malloy Van Halen gig, I did get some help from some people, but basically I was doing it myself, but generally speaking, like in England, I have my tech Roger is fantastic. I've been thinking about Roger actually, because he's over in Poland. He lives in Poland pretty much full time, and he's right next to all the madness right now. Hope he's well. I saw the other day he was going on vacation. He's great. British guy that ended up moving to Poland and settling down with a woman there and having kids and stuff. And he's a good guy. What do you think of the Boss Katana? Generally speaking, they're pretty darn cool, especially for the dough. And like, I know even Sir has one. I don't have one, but Sir has one. He's like, this is a pretty great little practice amp. So he likes his. Yeah, I know. So I think they're pretty darn good. I like those. I like those little Yamaha THRs or whatever they're called. I mean, I like a lot of these. A lot of this stuff, watch a video of you playing VH at the Hollywood Bowl. I never did that. Maybe it looked like the Hollywood Bowl where I was, but I've never actually played at the Hollywood Bowl. Now, mind you, that's where I saw Van Halen. I was at the last Van Halen show at the Hollywood Bowl. So I saw Van Halen. I saw Van Halen play Van Halen at the Hollywood Bowl. Little did we know it would be the last Van Halen gig ever. We had no clue. But I'm glad I was there. I have a local Weatherspoons in an old police station. Yeah, they build them in some interesting spots, don't they? I mean, sometimes they're like in like kind of, where you would expect in an old free house in a pub or whatever, but sometimes they're in these crazy spaces that they kind of renovate. Here's another vote for Weatherspoons jackets. Tuna and cheese. Yeah, delicious. They're pretty good for cheap, right? How have you dealt with burnout with certain gigs in the past? I don't know that I've ever had that. I'm generally really happy to be out there and playing and working. Like, I don't remember feeling like, oh, I got to get out of here. Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't really have those feelings that much. Every moment on stage is always totally living, like Jimmy Page would say. Like, we're lucky to be there, and I don't get bored of playing the same songs over and over again. Generally, that doesn't really happen. The newness of every new venue and every new face in the crowd and stuff, it makes me happy to be there. So with that said, I do remember times, for instance, when Chris Cornell, when we'd been out touring for 3 years, I do remember feeling towards the end of our tenure where it was our band, that band playing with Chris, I do remember feeling like this is probably winding down. Like, I think this is, we ended up playing in Lisbon, Portugal was the last gig on a tour in Europe. And you can just feel the energy when it's like, yeah, I think this is kind of concluding. And like, I hope it happens again, but you're sort of, like after you're playing 300 gigs or something like that, you're like, I'm ready to do something else for a second, think about other things. And then I'd love to come back and do this more, But I think that's what Chris was probably feeling too towards the end of that. He was ready to, and lo and behold, he did a songbook album the next year, and then went back to Soundgarden. So he was obviously feeling that, ready to do something. You can feel that from the boss, and then also just as a collective, you can feel the energy kind of shifting. Like, I don't think we're going to go out and play, outshined on another tour next year. I don't think it's going to happen. I think that he's going to go and do something big. Like, you can just feel it. It's time for him to go do another record now, because you just feel it. I felt that with Melissa Etheridge too. Towards when I was playing with her, it was always super fun and everything. But towards the end of the second big tour I did with her, I remember thinking like feeling like that shift. And then I got offered another gig, this opportunity in France that came up, which I decided to take because it was so much work, and I went on that other adventure. So you can just feel those things, and it's not anything about like burnout. It's more just like you feel the energy, like a shift in the energy, and it's like, maybe I should do this for a bit now. Something like that. I know sometimes people aren't ready for it. Did you get any of you guys on this note? Did you watch the Rush movie called Time Stands Still? It's on YouTube. It's really great. It's pretty emotional. The fans, especially, I love how they profile a lot of the fans in it. It's leading up to their last gigs. The last show was in LA, I guess. And right down to the last show, and they follow a lot of the fans, and kind of like these super fans, that kind of like go to every show or go to a bunch of the shows on the tour, and you get to see some of these people and how they become like a family, which I've seen in many situations that I've been in where I'm on tour, and you'll see the same people come to the gigs, and they all sort of start making friends, those people, if they're following a band around, and they become like a little family, and so you see that in this movie with the fans, and how appreciative they are of the band, and what a great vibe it is. And it's sad because that Geddy and Alex probably not ready to, like not ready for that to end in any way, shape, or form. But it was time for Neil. He kind of wanted to, physically, he wasn't feeling like he could keep up and be Neil Peart anymore. Not at the level that he'd been doing, and he didn't want to, he put so much pressure on himself, that guy. which, you know, it's sort of sad in a way. Reading his books, which I've read most of them, the amount of pressure he would put on himself to perform at a certain level and not give himself a break. It had to be just so, or I think he had a deathly fear of mistakes, or of being, anybody ever saying that he wasn't the greatest, or he was like, it wasn't like almost an ego thing. It was like his own, like the standard that he held himself to was so high that it was almost like, hey man, you can not do that so much and just be like, give yourself a break, and we would all, be fine with that. But he just couldn't, and it wasn't in it just wasn't in his makeup, wasn't who he was, I guess. And then of course he's takes a year off and then gets sick, and it's just so, it's like, he barely had any time to like enjoy his retirement, so anyway. But oh man, crazy. Well, great movie if you haven't seen it. Everything comes to an end, and so it's really a good watch, especially if you're a fan, or even if you're not a fan. Who else we got here? Really enjoying your comments on the quad Cortex. Would you say your first choice is the quad? I mean, I have a Kemper sitting right here, and it's a great unit. A lot of people are in the Kemper kind of, the ecosystem or whatever. And I mean, I saw a show last night, guitar players using a Kemper. It's like, they're everywhere. I could use either and be good. I really like the way like I'm looking at it right now. There's a lot of buttons on the Kemper. A lot of people, once you learn how to navigate it, it's fine. The quad is so easy. I think that resonated with me, is one of the reasons why I'm using it a lot. The simplicity and lack of a learning curve that I find, I don't find it daunting to use. I almost barely ever have to crack a manual with it to know how to do anything. I mean, it's just very, if I can't figure it out within a few button pushes, I've figured it out, generally speaking. And I really like that. I think it sounds really good. So if you watch that video that I put out of it and the tones and stuff, like, I'm so happy with those sounds. I don't really need more than that. I don't know. It just works really well for me. So it's maybe more to do with the UI and the workflow that I really, that maybe I use it more than other modeling things these days. They really got that right. And that's a big part of how things fit into my guitar playing life these days. I don't want to think too much, I get overwhelmed by gear a little bit, and by the learning curves and stuff like that, I guess, and I don't like things that are not that the Kemper's too complex, it's not. And many people use it. It's one of the most successful devices, out there. But anyways, it's a really good unit that works great for a lot of people, and I have one and I've enjoyed it, and I used it a lot on my last record, by the way. When I had to go home and record things at home for various reasons in my old apartment that I lived in, I did, quite a few of probably 40% of the guitars were done in my little place. I used the Kemper on a lot of that. Not on everything, probably, few of the tunes, I mean, the very first song on the record is probably 80% Kemper guitars. So I've used it, and it's a good unit. Thanks for the super chat there. Robags. Thanks. Robogs. Yeah. Thanks for the response. I've been playing weddings for like 8 years, almost every weekend, and just feeling burnt out. Well, that makes sense. I mean, if you're doing the same thing for 8 years, I've never done a gig for 8 years, so I can't even relate to that. That's a longer stint. Maybe you need to mix it up. Maybe, like record some of your own music at home, write some songs or something, and just do some playing for fun, or take classical guitar lessons, or like, something completely out of the realm of what you've been doing. I know that I couldn't do, I mean, I have a great time playing with classic rock show, for instance. I couldn't do that like all year long, I'd have to be back here. And like, even this week, I was kind to myself this week with the amount of work that I put on myself, and I was just like, just easy into it, almost take the week off, because I was just out for 6 weeks and all over the place. And I just felt like taking some downtime. But I still got some work done this week, and I wrote a track for this, the video for this Vibe Machine pedal, and I've got it basically almost done, that video. So I'll put that out this week, and it was fun because it's like, oh yeah, programming drums again, and playing bass, and writing a little bit of music, and coming up with a melody, and that whole other thing that I do. I really need that balance. Yeah, in order to be a happy guy. Thanks for putting out so much great work over the years. Thanks, man. I wish I'd put out more. Hopefully more coming. Are there any issues recording 2 amps in stereo using 2 different load boxes, a sur-reactive load and an aux? Well, you may run into a little bit of, if you were to combine the tracks to mono, you may get a little comb filtery, phase cancellation kind of sound because the IR length might not be the same in the reactive load versus the aux. As a matter of fact, it's probably not. So, or not the IR length. Sorry, that's not what I meant. Sorry, I'm still waking up. The A to D conversion. So A to D conversion always takes a little bit of time. And in a sur-reactive load, it's 1 point something milliseconds. I don't know how much. And in the aux, it could be 2.0 milliseconds or 1.4 milliseconds. So if it's a couple milliseconds off, you get this phasing thing. One way to get around it is you could disable the speaker sim in both the aux and in the reactive load. Just go unfiltered into the computer and then do the impulse responses in your DAW. Then you won't have any of that. They'll be perfectly phase aligned if you use the same plugin on each channel, for say the 2 different amplifiers. So that's one way around it. But if you want to use the speaker sim, you'll just have to experiment. You might be able to time delay one of the channels a little bit using like a sample down to the sample level kind of delay plugin set at 100%. So it just time delays one of the tracks and time aligns them. But you'll have to do a little bit of, so longer answer, how to do that and how to look at the 2 channels and then how to bring the one into phase, so to speak. But that's what you want to watch for. You can try it. It might just work. I don't think it will work perfectly, though. Probably not. That's my guess, is that you'll get a little bit of that phasing sound. Probably sound fine if you have the amps hard panned. But then if you collapse them to mono, it might get a little sound a little hollow or something, or a little try it and see what happens. Yeah. Oh man. Let's see. Have you ever used the Audio-Technica ATM 650 dynamic? I don't think so. Most companies will have their version of a 57 though. That one I've never used. I'm familiar with AT 4050 I have on my cab in the other room, but that's a condenser. I've got some AT 450, I think they're called. They're like a small diaphragm condenser that I use on acoustic guitar, but their dynamics, not so much. I really like their clip-on mics for drums. I believe they're condensers though. They're like small mics that you'd clip on a tom. Boy, do those ever sound good. Really great for toms, and probably sound good on snare too. Never tried one on a guitar amp. They sound so clear on toms and just huge, and they're so tiny you can just clip them to the rim. Pretty cool. What we got here? A Bella Reverb sounds so good, seems to have a bit of hum. Tubes can be, if if bias gets weird, or if it's probably, if there's nothing, first of all, if there's nothing plugged into the input of the amp and you just want to listen to the idle noise of the amp, that's when any noise in there, maybe tap the tubes with just lightly with the edge of a screwdriver or something, the power tubes, and listen for any rattle or howling or anything like that. Or in a preamp tube, like any whistle. But yeah, it's possible it could, if hum, and especially if it starts increasing, probably power tubes could be. Might want to have a tech look at it and just, do some biasing. By the way, an interesting discussion that kind of plays into all the world events of these days is what the hell's going to happen with tubes right now? Oh boy. Who knows? Not really sure. Might be a good time to get some for your amps if you haven't. Just saying. Oh, this fella says wedding gigs are horrible. I used to do that. Had to give it up, even though the money was pretty decent. Yeah, the money can be good. I remember probably the last wedding I ever played. Some woman coming up to the band and saying, "Nobody will tell you guys, but I'll tell you. You're too loud. Turn down." You know, that's my memory of the last wedding gig I played. So yeah, you know, it's like it can be probably a little soul sucking. You know, I would say maybe not the most fun. Yeah. Yeah. What else we got here? Did you see the Rick Beato interview with Al Di Meola? I didn't, actually. I would like to watch that. I watched his Sting interview, though, and quite enjoyed it. Oh, this is interesting. There's a festival in Pasadena in May. I didn't know that. Where is it being held, Naive Steve? Is it like down by the Rose Bowl grounds or something like that? Or wonder where it's at. If there's a festival in Pasadena, I'll definitely check it out. It's fun. If I can walk somewhere from home, I'm down. Yeah. John says, I hate all the modelers in part because I feel they're too complicated, but I have 12 pedals on my board. Well, yeah, but a pedal is generally a couple buttons, a few knobs, you know, and that you can get your head around, right? And it's just kind of like a you know, turn it on, see what it does. Oh, it makes that sound. Oh, I like that sound, you know, and then it's the when we get into paging through menus and things like that and routing things and Tom says I use my Kemper a lot. It's easy. Yeah, I mean, once I kind of got into it, it was cool. You know, it's not that it's super complicated. It's just like you know, I'll give you an example. Like on the quad, one thing I liked is when you're doing a capture, which is the equivalent of the Kemper's profiling, it literally walks you through how to do it on the screen. New capture. Step 1. Plug this in here, and it gives you a graphic on the screen, as opposed to having to look in the manual. Okay, what do I plug into? What input do I plug the output of the load box into? Where do I plug my guitar into? Where do I plug my? I guess you plug your guitar into the input, but you know what I'm saying. On the quad, it'll walk you through how to do all that stuff, and then even setting levels, and it's like that. It gives you like a tutorial as you're plugging everything in. Within 5 minutes, you've done it all, and you didn't crack a manual, even the first time you've done it. Just little things like that where I'm like, this is so nice, you know. So that's all. But that's a kind of a new thing. I mean, the Kemper's been out for 10 years now, at least, right? I think so. It probably over 10 years, and you know, for it's we can't deny the success of it and how well it's done. You know. Do you have any disappointing experiences from meeting your heroes? You know, not really. I've been really lucky that way. I know a lot of people do. I've heard a lot of stories, you know, folks that have had things happen. I've been really lucky. So, for the most part, I haven't had anyone let me down or treat me badly or, you know, be dismissive or rude or any of that stuff. You know, everybody's been really cool. I think, not to like toot my own horn, but I think I'm also good at navigating those personalities. So, you know, I've met a lot of folks that are notoriously difficult personalities or worked with folks that are notoriously difficult personalities. And I kind of have a good handle on the psychology of, you know, how to navigate those, you know, and maybe thrive in a room with those folks. I think it's probably part of why I've, you know, been able to work with. I think that's part and parcel part of like how folks get and hold on to gigs, you know, knowing when to shut up, when to speak, when to offer opinions, when to not offer opinions, making them feel at ease and comfortable when maybe they're around people that are constantly, you know, doting on them or, you know, when to, like how to make them feel like they can drop the guard just a little bit or that kind of thing. That's a lot of the skill of being a sideman. And so maybe that's why I've had good experiences and not had weird run-ins with folks that can maybe be notoriously difficult. But anyway, help to keep the coffee flowing and keep you rocking and rolling. Helping to keep the coffee flowing and keep you rocking and rolling. That's for a little melody. Help to keep the coffee flowing and keep you rocking and rolling. Help to keep the coffee. Okay, I'm really sorry. That's my stupid musical brain. What else we got here? There's another super chat. Thanks, man, for the super chat, Arthur. I appreciate it. And it is time to buy some beans and some capsules. So these super chats will be going to a good place to get me caffeinated. If you were to mic your amp live in one guitar band, would you use multiple mics or just a single mic? If you would use more than one mic, would you pan them? That's a really good question. So I'll offer you some ideas. So my whole video recently on the quad Cortex was based off of like, I want to split the stereo because for this song that I've got to do live at a gig, I'm going to be the only guitar player and I feel like mono is not working. So I did kind of a modern way to, add some stereo effects and get in the PA a bigger sound. So if you haven't seen that, you can watch my recent, I just uploaded it this week, my recent quad Cortex video on how to do this in kind of a modern way. That said, if you were to mic your amp live in a one guitar band, would you use multiple mics and would you pan them? So you could, but you don't really get you don't get imaging, it's still going to be mono doing that. But here's one trick that I learned from an engineer, great engineer, guy that actually mixes the Eagles now. His name is Tom, and he's really brilliant. And I went to see him mix a couple different bands going back 10 years. And he ended up on the Eagles gig years later, just kind of like coincidence, and mixing Don Henley as well. It was right after I wasn't playing with Don anymore that he, like literally the next gig, he then gets the gig, and I knew this guy, and I was like, we didn't really get a chance to work together. We did do one gig together with Don after that a couple years later, but anyways, I digress. Great engineer, really brilliant, always has an amazing sounding mix live, and he was mixing this band called Group Love, and they were playing at the Wiltern, I think, in LA. I think that's where I saw them. And the guitar player had a huge sound. It sounded really great in the PA. And I went up to Tom after the show and I said, "What's going on with the guitar sound, man? It sounds great." And all I could see on stage was like a little Blues Junior, I think, like one of those little Fender combos, open back, like 110 thing. And he goes, "Yeah, the guy just uses this combo, and I mic it front and back. And instead of flipping," so this is live. This wouldn't work in a recording because if you collapse to mono, the sound will be out of phase and disappear. But imagine this combo, mic'd front and back with a microphone pointing, one at the front, one at the back. And then he hard pans those without flipping the phase. Interesting. It's really interesting in the PA. You had a very big sound in the PA that totally worked. Now, if you were to pan those center, it would phase cancel and sound weird because you can't point two microphones front and back at one another when the speaker's going like this. You always have to flip the phase on the back one in order to keep the microphones in phase. So if you ever mic a combo front and back, just know that. It's a little like miking like a tom. If you mic a tom-tom or any drum, really, snare, under mic and over mic, you have to flip the bottom one out of phase. Or it won't completely phase cancel, but a bunch of the sound of the drum will disappear when you combine those two microphones. Anytime you point two mics at one another from a different direction, sort of. So, but if you pan, you do get an image, and it was really sounded good, and I never would have thought of that. So, if you use a 906 and an M160, I would probably do something like put the 906 on the back and the 160 on the front, if it's a combo amp you're talking about, and then try panning it in the PA and see if it sounds amazing. Interesting trick. Never seen anyone else do it. Sounded great that night, I must say. So, cool little trick. And as I say, you can't really do that on a recording, or it'll, if anybody ever listens to it in mono, it'll cancel. But for live, that's not really a concern. So it was pretty neat. Let's see here. Thanks for the super chat as well, Tyler. Appreciate it. We all know that plugins like Guitar Rig and Neural DSP don't recreate the live feeling of playing a tube amp in a room, but what about running a modeler through a cabinet? Yeah, it's helpful. I mean, I find kind of what I did with Mitch Malloy doing the Van Halen gig. I used the Quad Cortex, but I ran it out of a power amp and guitar cabinets, just played like that, like with the cabinet's mic'd, traditional kind of miking setup. So it's helpful. With something like the Quad or the Kemper, you can do this quite easily in Axe-Fx. They've got different routing paths, and you can hook up one output with no speaker simulation generally on these units and run into a power amp and guitar cabinet of some sort, and it will feel more familiar, and better. So I recommend it. I just recommend using a cabinet on stage, a guitar cabinet, not a full range cabinet. Just let's not make this harder than it needs to be. Even if it's a 112 or a 212, it sounds great and feels great to have a cabinet on stage pushing air and to be able to get feedback and interaction with the guitar speakers. It's a part of the electric guitar sound that I would hate to see go away. I don't like playing on stages with no guitar cabinet. I think it turns the guitar into kind of a synthesizer. It's like playing a keyboard with a sampled piano sound as opposed to playing an actual Steinway on stage or whatever, for somebody that's used to the action and the response and of the lid up and hearing the hammers hit the strings, on a piano. It's just not the same experience playing a sampled piano. But I think that's the same thing we guitar players go through when we don't have an amp on stage. Very similar. Because an electric guitar with an amplifier and speakers is sort of an acoustic instrument, in its own way. It's got its own character to it that just never is the same if we're just listening on in-ears and there's no cabinet on stage, there's no feedback, there's none of that. So some facsimile of the sound that we knew with a cabinet. Since I don't have a real studio yet and I'm worried about noise, how would you recommend recording without a mic? Well, you can use, having said everything I just said, for recording, you can use a load box or something like the PT-15 that's got a direct output on it and go right into. That's what we designed the PT-15 to be. To be able to get mic'd up cabinet sound, but be able to do it through headphones if you want to. So, of course, there's modelers, Kemper, or a Axe-Fx, or a Quad Cortex, or a Head Rush. You can go that way as well. So just look at all the options available to you, and what the coolest quiet option would be. There's right down to the Iridium from Strymon, little modeler pedal that's got a Fender, a Vox, and a Marshall in it, and sounds really good for what it is. $399. How do you flip the phase on a mic? Generally speaking, the easiest way to do it is most mic pre's on a console will have. Take a picture of my mic pre here, and you can see. I'll just show you. So here's a couple of pre's in my rack. This is a BAE 1073. You can see the big red gain knob there for the mic pre. That's the 1/4 inch input for like a line input. And then you'll get these, usually a couple switches. DI, that's to turn on this input. Line level there. You'll see this 48V switch right here. It says 48V. If you can see that, I don't know if you can or not. That's for phantom power to power condenser microphones. And then this switch right here. See how it's like a circle with a line through it? That's to flip the phase. So that's that kind of universal symbol for phase flip. So, if I plugged in 2 microphones because it's a 2-channel mic pre, and I was micing the front and back of a combo and I wanted them to be in phase, I would just push in that phase button. Same thing here on my, this is an API mic pre. So there's the gain knob there, over there. And then, for this channel, it's actually over here. But you can see a button here labeled POL. That's polarity. So that'll flip the phase on the microphone. In a DAW, you've generally got, there's plugins that you can flip phase within a DAW very simply. A lot of gain plugins will do it, like utility gain plugins. Virtual mic pre's, like all of them in UA, any of the SSL or API or anything, they've all got a phase flip switch on them. So real easy. You could also have barring all that, a cable with the polarity reversed, like a microphone cable where it's flipped on the cable. You can do that with, by the way, the guitar. This is a consideration too, like polarity of, guitar rigs and stuff, you can get a phase flip speaker cable so that, let's say if you're using 2 amplifiers, 2 cabinets, let's say a Soldano and a Marshall, it can be a crapshoot if you're blending 2 amps live, if they're in phase or not. And you might have to flip the phase in one of them. You might find when you run the 2 amps together, splitting with a pedal or something, you go into both, that that you're getting phase cancellation. Like, when you stand, it's a very distinct sound that you'll recognize if somebody shows it to you, or if it just sounds weird. It sounds like very hollow when you're right in the middle of the 2 cabinets. And if you move to one side or the other, the sound comes back. But right in the middle, it sounds like it kind of disappears into a tube. It's a very sort of tubular sort of, like, oh, that sounds terrible right in the middle of the 2 cabinets. That's out of phase. You can actually just take a speaker cable that's had the phase reversed on it, like the 2 cables on one end of the 2, the hot and the ground or whatever the hell they are on a 2 conductor speaker cable, and that'll flip the phase of that amplifier. So it's good to keep around in your kit or in your bag or something. If you're blending amplifiers and stuff that you find yourself doing sometimes, it's good to carry a phase flip speaker cable just in case you run into using a couple amps that are out of phase. There's other ways to do it, to flip phase. A lot of AB boxes, like the twin bones from Radial. I just show you, like, let me get the box for it here in a sec. Twin City, this one's called ABY. Like this pedal. This is the Radial AB that I always recommend to folks for, if you want to run, say, a twin and a Marshall and an AC30 and whatever together. You can use a pedal like this. So your guitar goes in, and then 2 outputs, and you got a switch there to toggle between A or B or both. Right, turn them both on, and then you've got 2 switches here. One is to ground lift the second output, which you'll need to do if you've got 2 amplifiers connected and they're both grounded. You're going to get a big old ground loop because you've got more than one path to ground. So you can lift right there with this pedal, and that'll make the buzz go away. And then this switch right here is to flip the phase. So those are the 2 switches that generally on any good ABY you will find: ground lift and polarity reverse for the second output. So anytime you're combining 2 signals, it's kind of like, that's flipping the phase is something you got to consider. If the signals aren't quite at the same time meeting the recorder or the PA or whatever, you're gonna have to flip the phase, one of them. Hopefully this is some helpful information for those that didn't know. Yep, not available. Just got a PT15IR. Would the Sir Bella 112 extension cab be a good fit? Swap the V-type for a Heritage M Greenback, EVH Greenback. Well, the Bella is open, I believe. I have heard it out at Sir, I think, one time with the PT15, although it's not, because we do have a matching cabinet, that has an H75 in it that goes with the amp. But if you want to use the Bella cabinet, there's nothing. I know where it was. I used it in Singapore for a clinic. They had a Bella 112, and it did sound good. It had a V-type in it. That's right. And I actually thought it sounded really good. They just didn't have a PT212 or anything in. They just had, that was the only cab they had. So I used it, and it was like, oh, that sounds good too. It's a nice cabinet. I don't think there's anything wrong with the V-type, to be honest. It's a pretty good sounding speaker that's kind of a mix between like a 30 and a 25 or something. But you could try a Heritage Greenback or EVH. They're the same, basically. Heritage M Greenback or EVH, same speaker. For Tom Petty style, I don't know. Just try the V-type, to be honest. I don't know that a speaker swap would give you something. If I was going to go Tom Petty, and I might then swap in like a Alnico Cream or something, like go something that's more, maybe even got more like Alnico. Because when I think of Tom Petty, I think of an even mix of kind of Fendery sounds as well as probably AC30 sometimes. So Alnico kind of character. That would be what I would recommend trying, actually, if I wanted a rootsier or an A-type. Probably A-type, actually. I love that speaker, actually. John doesn't like it as much, sir, but I like it. I think it sounds really good. I did a video of it. Check it out if you get a chance. A-type, kind of underrated. What is reamping? Reamping is, I'm going to grab that super chat up there in just a sec. Reamping is like when you record a DI off the guitar. So let's say you're tracking and you're plugged into your pedal board and your amp rig or whatever, and you've got an amp mic'd up. Okay, great. Here's your guitar sound. You do basic tracks with that or whatever. Cool. What the producer will sometimes do is on the way from right out of your guitar, and maybe even if you're using, well, I think generally speaking, to be right out of the guitar, you would plug into a split that is a DI. And the DI will have a through that you can then pass through to your pedals and your amp and stuff, record as normal. But it'll also allow them to take an isolated split right off the guitar straight into the recorder. So now you've got a DI guitar signal, the sound output of the guitar, nothing else, right? Just the raw electric guitar signal, unamplified by any amp or pedal or anything. You can take that and run it into the recorder and print a track every time that you lay a guitar part down. So, and I've worked with producers that do this sometimes, and they want options later at the mix to be maybe be able to get different sounds. So once you lay down a guitar track that's DI, you could now use that and apply amp plugins to it if you wanted to, or you could use a real physical amp again. And that's generally what reamping is when you take then that DI track, you run it back out of the recorder, the DAW, and then you run it right into an amplifier. And now, so like, oh, we recorded with a Marshall, but let's try this 5150 or whatever instead. You can then run that DI signal out, put it into an amp, mic up the amp as though it was the first time you'd played the guitar. You just play it right back off the recorder, out through the cabinet and the amplifier, and then print it back on another track. So that's reamping. Generally speaking, you need to interface your recorder with the front of that amp in a way that makes the amp think it's sort of seeing a guitar signal and not a line level something coming out of a, so this is where reamp boxes that match impedance and level come in handy. Because of course, if you print that track, the DI sound out of your guitar onto the recorder, and then let's say it somehow gets boosted or something coming back off of tape or the computer, coming back out and going into the front of the amp, and if it's a real low impedance signal and kind of boosted at a different level, well, the amp's going to respond different than it would if you just plug the guitar right into the amp. So these are some of the considerations when you're reamping, to try and make the sound as much as possible as though it was coming right out of the guitar. So matching impedance and matching the level back off of tape or back off of the computer into the front of the amp is pretty important, I think. And of course, you could also run through pedals, like, so you could come back off the recorder, whatever it may be, and go into some effects, whatever and then into the amp. And like I say, once again, you could also just use plugins like, the PT100 plugin from UA or something. You could run through there and get a different, tweak it and stuff. Use the DI signal for that. So that's reamping. Yeah. Do you prefer overproduced or raw recordings? Well, I never. If it's overproduced, then I don't like it. But some overproduced, I like not overproduced, but lots of production. I do love the first thing that comes to mind is like the Ben Gross title of record Filter album that came out around 2001 or 2 or 3. Like, that record had layers and layers and layers of guitars and drum loops and things all, but it was such a kind of, at the time, a very state-of-the-art sounding rock record. And I loved the sound of it. I loved how Ben Gross was the producer and engineer, I do believe. And I loved how he would somehow make the sound get even bigger when you thought it was as big as it could get. So like, it would go to a level and then another level, and it's like really rocking now. And then it just goes in the chorus and it gets even bigger. It's like, whoa, how do you do that with and I've always been fascinated by production. So I like stuff like that. Saw a band last night, guy goes by the name of Grandson. And it's very alternative rock meets EDM. I don't know how else to describe it. Really good. Really good lyrics. The dude is, to me, I mean, he writes about a lot of sort of angst, teenage angst, sort of, or young people angst sort of stuff. millennial Generation Z sort of themes. I've got anxiety, I'm this, I'm that, but his lyrics are really intelligent. So he does it in a way that doesn't sound like just typical sort of, I don't know how else to describe it. He's like he's a bit of a poet. And he's got a very explosive show. I saw it at the El Rey last night with sort of multimedia. My only criticism is a lot of these bands that are coming out now, if anybody's been to any shows like young people out there playing these days, there's a real movement towards loops or playing to Ableton, and only having a couple musicians on stage and somebody singing. So there'll be a guitar player, a drummer, and a singer, and that's it. And then a lot on track. It's like, can you just still get a bass player, please? Like, I know it's expensive these days and stuff, and the budgets aren't what they once were and stuff, but it's kind of like kids don't seem to care actually when you go to the shows. I mean, it's like if there's not a full band up there, people are just like, yeah, whatever. There's like 3 musicians on stage, but there's all this sound. But anyway, he was great. And the guitar player was really good too. He had a guitar player and a drummer and him. That was it. It's like, I guess kind of the pinnacle of maybe, shows like that you see is like probably Billie Eilish, where it's like her and her brother and a drummer, and that's it. And there's a lot on the tracks, but she's singing and everything, and it's great. But geez, stuff is sure flushed out with a lot of stuff. And it's just kind of the modern, I mean, it's like it's old man shaking the stick at the sky at this point. But I just wish there was like maybe one more person up there in a lot of these bands, at least a bass player, would be cool. Or if it's a bass player, maybe at least a guitar player would be, not just 3 people up there or whatever. But anyways, I digress. I really enjoyed the show. And my point was that I was listening to his music the other day, and I was really blown away like at how good it was. And it's very produced. It's very EDM, the production. But there's also raw, really dirty guitar stuff. Like there's a little bit of Royal Blood going on. And White Stripes and stuff, like, a little bit of that, like in the riffs and stuff. But his lyrics and his phrasing, I mean, it's like if you mixed EDM with Eminem, but he's singing at times really well too, and with Royal Blood and really raw sort of punk rock guitars and stuff, a bit of Nirvana too, something. So, good stuff overall, like. Killer, really enjoyed it. I might have missed a couple of super chats here. Let me just check. Do you still use the Sir Corso? I don't have a Corso. You know what happened, dude? I gave my Corso to Chris Cornell, and that was the last I ever saw of it. I gave it to him, and I think it's in Miami now in his studio. Like it's still there, like in the Cornell's place out there. So, I think that kind of pissed John off, but I was like, well, at least like a cool guy's got it, I lent it to him. I didn't mean to like give it to him permanently, but it just kind of disappeared. Yeah. How's the Destroyer fingerboard holding up to constant playing? I think it's okay. I really enjoyed the hell out of having that guitar on the road. Does it ever look cool? It's kind of big, bump into people a lot with it, but it's really fun. Wouldn't reamping potentially miss interaction between the guitar and the amp? Yes. Yeah, that's right. So there's no way to, there's no way around that. How close and angle the guitar is from amp speakers affects things, especially. Yeah, you don't get that with it. So, but it's cool for rhythm tones or, things like that. Porcupine Tree, they're a good example of a band that's got pretty intense production, but I really like it, for sure. I like Porcupine Tree. Is the Locking Goto bridge going to be available? Which Locking Goto bridge? I use a Wilkinson, but there might be another. This is funny. Are you doing the drinking show on Tone Talk? Dave and I have talked about this. Yes, some sort of where you make us drink and then we get hammered every time something happens. Maybe it's a super chat. Every time we get a $5 super chat or more, we drink. So you guys pay to get us drunk, basically. Something. It sounds like a terrible idea the more I think about it, but it's probably will be something that I do anyway, because that's just kind of the decisions that I make in my life, along with Dave. Kind of looking forward to it, actually. I need to lose my mind for a day. The state of the world these days. Let's all have some fun. Grandson is awesome. Really good. Yeah. Listen to his record. He brought it out. He mentioned last night. Seems like a sweet guy. I mean, he's about 28 years old, and he's like, man, thank you so much for being here. Because I think this is his first tour since the, pandemic and stuff. He brought out his record during the pandemic. I mean, I think it came out like 2019. And then like all of a sudden the pandemic, imagine being a young artist. You're like 26, 27 at that point. You work your ass off on this record. And all of a sudden the world stops. And you're like, so it's, he seems like really genuinely excited to be there last night they're going all over the US. Britt Bowman's playing drums in a band called Royal and the Serpent. And so they're opening. And so this is her first big tour as well. And they're going everywhere. They're going, I think they head to Portland next. They play LA again tonight. And then they go to Portland, then they go to Seattle, and then Denver, I think, and then Salt Lake. And they're just all over the place for the next 6 weeks. So, it's exciting. I mean, being there last night, I was like the oldest guy there, probably in the room. And it's great to see, people enjoying music and out and, young bands and stuff. And this Grandson dude is pretty rad. I'm a fan. Liked it. Check it out if you get a chance. Give it a listen. See what you think. Listen with an open mind. Can you give your brutally honest opinion on Coldplay? You're a lifelong fan. I don't want to offend you. My problem with Coldplay is I love the first record. I thought it was great, as a lot of people did. A lot of people are like, oh, they kind of sound like Radiohead. And of course, they meant Radiohead band's era. Because what does Radiohead sound like, right? But love that first record. Some nice, great songs on there. Really still enjoy listening to it when it comes on. They start to lose me on the next record, and then they just kind of lose me more and more because I found the songwriting less and less interesting as time went on. Now, they did put out a record when he broke up with Gwyneth Paltrow, and I remember it's as is often the case when there's like trouble brewing in relationship land and stuff. That's when people tend to make interesting music. So kind of like the songs that came out around that period, which is probably 10 years ago now. And since then, it's like collaborations with BTS and stuff. It's like, how can a band remain relevant and be constantly at the top of the charts? Which you got to hand it to them. It's like they've been around a long time and they've been able to have a lot of hits and maintain their status. I mean, they could probably headline any major pop music festival anywhere in the world still to this point, and they've been around well over 20 years now. So, they're getting to be older guys, and it's like, hey, more power to you. What do I know? But it many times, just to me, is the musical equivalent of khaki pants from The Gap. I don't know. Sorry. Do you know how to get to 1980? You left a comment about this on one of my other videos, I think, this week. 1982 Eruption Tone. Do you mean like live, like those Fargo videos live and stuff, when he had that very broken kind of like sound? It sounds to me like Single Coil. This is the era, I think, when Eddie had a pickup in his guitar that had a one busted coil or something, because it sounds like he's playing with a telly to me often. But beyond that, I don't really know. 82, he was probably still using, like, I think 84 was when he went to the load box flag cabinets and all that, and like the I'd have to ask Dave Friedman for the exact timeline, but I think in 82 he was still using multiple amp heads and didn't have the big Bradshaw thing going yet, when it was, before he went to the H&H's, I think, for tons of, maybe not, I don't know, because eventually he was loading down the heads and using H&H's to go to all the cabinets all over the place on stage and stuff. Guitar wise, though, the main component sounds to me like it's kind of low gain, from the videos from that era. So, do you remember how he sets it for what's this? Sorry, Joe, I didn't see that. I feel like I don't know the first part of that question. Otherwise, I would answer it. I really like the. Oh, I see. Here it is. Eventide H3000 at Michael Thompson's place. So Michael just does a modulated delay using the H3000. So micro pitch style, I think, delay, but delayed. So with the delays pitched, and I don't remember the delay times that he uses. I'd have to watch the video again myself. But basically, it's a modulated stereo delay using the Eventide. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Blazone says, I'm looking good. Hey, thanks. Feeling pretty good overall. Do you have a comical memory of something going majorly wrong on stage? The first thing that came to mind is with Cornell in Salt Lake City once, all the power went out. So we were mid-rock song, rocking out, whatever we were playing, and all of a sudden, nothing. And like, it's weird when I had in-ears in. So that sound goes dead. And you're like, oh no, is it my amp? And then you're like, wait a minute, there's no sound. The PA is not on. Like, you have that realization. And all you can hear is the drums behind you, acoustic drums, because, and the emergency lights came on in the venue, because all the lights go off too on stage, the whole lighting rig, like the whole venue lost power. And Cornell, because he's great and, genius, and everything else that he was, turns around and looks at the drums and goes, drum solo. And it was great. It made the show memorable, and Sutter did a drum solo for probably 4 minutes because there was nothing else to do. And and it's just like the acoustic drums on stage with no PA. And all of a sudden then the power comes back on and everything. And we come back playing, and it's like a better show for it. How you deal with adversity. I bet a lot of people remember that show, over others that they probably saw over the years, just because of that unique element, yeah. What else we got here? There's sorry, Henrik, I missed your super chat, but I didn't because I got it now. Do you have a favorite fixed bridge? Comfort, ease of intonation. A favorite fixed bridge, I would say. Look at my guitars that I've got here. I really like Tone Pro's stuff, which is, I think, what's probably on my Steve Stevens Nags over there. Because it locks, the bridge locks to the posts. So if you've got a tunematic and you take it off, if you're restringing or cleaning the fingerboard or whatever, and you pick up the guitar, the bridge doesn't fall off. I like that, how just locking to the posts, the Tone Pro stuff seems really good. That said, I'm looking around here, a lot of my guitars, unless it's Gibson tunematic style, have tremolos, right? So I've got my old Telly here somewhere, so that doesn't. My MacMull has this, one of those 3 saddle jobbies that's compensated for intonation. That said, I'm not really crazy about this bridge. There's one thing on this guitar that I'm not really that crazy about, because you got to put the string just in the right groove. It's got these grooves, it's almost like they're like screws, the saddles. And if the string's not just in the right, it can kind of sound weak, like you lose sustain or something. I just picked up this guitar. I haven't picked this up for a while. It's such a nice guitar. It has such a great neck on it. Really nice neck on this guitar. These guys make beautiful guitars. MacMull, made in Israel. Really nice. Like if you in the market for a real vintage boutique Strat or Telly, they definitely feel really great and sound really good. That guitar sounds amazing. Let's see, what's this question? Did the onstage cab with dry signal affect how the audience heard your guitar? Oh, like with the quad Cortex, the way I use it? Probably a little bit, but only right in the front row, And the whole front of our stage, this is, for those that don't know, I use a quad Cortex on the latest tour I did with Classic Rock Show, and I'm split the stereo and the PA with some effects coming from the quad Cortex, but the cabinet on stage is before all that. It's just amp into the cabinet, so it doesn't have any of those sounds in it. So I think this is a question about how would that affect, definitely the front row. People are going to get a bit of a beam, a few people in the crowd, and they're going to hear that cabinet, and then they're going to hear the sound out of the PA as well. But we did angle the cabinets at sound check and stuff to not hit the audience as much as possible. If you look at the angle of and pictures and stuff of my cab on stage, it's sort of reflects that. And the amp's not super loud, so it's like the PA is going to get up above the cabinet on stage pretty easily. So with our stage, we had the flowing PA and the, you know, this whatever flowing on either side, or sometimes stacks if you couldn't fly the PA in a certain venue. Generally, it was flowing, big, you know, line array rig. And then generally on stage, there'd be the sub stacked, and then maybe a couple of small cabinets on top of the subs facing kind of the first few rows from either side, on either side of the stage facing in. This is the PA I'm talking about. And then all the way along the front, there'd be 3 or 4 front fill. Small cabinets, but very powerful, about this big, little PA cabinets that kind of are, you know, filling in the first 3 rows or whatever with sound from the PA. So you'd have those front fills and then the 2 cabinets here, and then the flowing PA. So if you're back anywhere, those line array PAs have a very, very, very big sweet spot. So if you're, you know, just getting underneath it or whatever, you're going to get it still, the sound off the PA. They get a wide throw, you know. So long story short, no, I don't think it was a problem with the cab on stage. You know, I was really happy with the sound in the PA, the sound everywhere. Yeah. What else we got here? Let's go down to the bottom of the chat. Amen to having a real speaker cab for a bit of volume on the stage. Yeah, man. Yeah, is it so? Angus, you played in the Ultimate Queen celebration. So we both did. That's right. I remember hearing about you from Brandon. Well, nice to have you here. Ultimate Queen celebration was with Mark Martel, amazing singer, amazing band that I got to go do some subbing with, and Angus did as well. So Angus, tell us about what you used then. Like, were you using the as far as your rig goes? I took, for all those gigs, I was using the Fractal FM. No, sorry, the AX8, I think it is, the, you know, square model or floor one that's now they've got the FM9 and all that. But I was using the older version of that, and I was using you know, presets that they provided for me. So, and they were really quite good. But I wonder what you used. If it was the same thing, if it was the Fractal. Yeah, it's a little tough, right? Playing Queen music. I mean, it's like a big part of the sound is that feedback that. So you maybe tend to use more gain just so you can get a little sustain, or, you know, try and get something off the PA. But it is tough when, you know, playing the gigs. I'm glad you kind of commiserate with me on that, especially, you know, Brian May would be a prime example of somebody that you know, definitely relied on stage sound and feedback off the cabinets and stuff. And it's hard. It's hard to play the music when you don't have that going on, I think. Is there any delay between the PA and what you're playing on stage with my rig? Like minor, yeah, a little bit, because it's coming out, but it's really not a big. I would go over to the cabinets this time. Actually, it seemed like there was very little delay, because I'd be trying to be cognizant of, like, sometimes I don't have my in-ears in, and then you go over to the PA and you start playing with the PA, and then, like, when you listen back to a recording later, you're out of time because you're, you know, maybe 200 milliseconds or something behind the. Or maybe not that much, maybe even 100 milliseconds or 40 milliseconds, but it sounds like you're late, you know, playing. Because if you start playing to the PA and the PA is delayed because of the digital stuff that's in between, you know, the digital console and stuff, and a little bit of, you know, 10 milliseconds here or 5 milliseconds there or whatever, and then you even just the throw of the PA in the room and the sound coming back, you start to get off on your time. But I didn't notice that this time. So, you know, I don't know, maybe the delay times are getting shorter or something. I've missed a super chat from Modern Vintage. Let me try and find that right now. Great to have all you guys here, man. We got 410 people here. Thanks for being here. I'm going to find you, Modern Vintage. Where are you, my friend? Sorry about that. Where are you, dude? Not seeing it, Modern Vintage. Oh, there you are. Sorry, bud. It happens. Do guys like you, Shanks, Mayor, Tim, Rusty, not care too much about neck carve and just buy and play the best sounding. I think people care about I can't speak for everybody else, but I know that as I went on with time, I got used to playing different kinds of guitars. I used to be more picky, like I wanted everything to feel the same. I'd be really picky about things, but then like later on I realized like the beauty sometimes is that different instruments play differently and make you play differently, because of the neck shape or the scale length or the action or different things that make you play differently. So it can be cool, to have that variety sometimes. With that said, on my signature guitars, I really like them set up perfectly. Like if the neck's a little bit out of whack or whatever, I can really feel it. Like if the, truss rods, if the neck's gotten bowed a little bit or something, it's like, ooh, I don't like that. Like on that, because those guitars are like very precision and I know exactly the way I want them to feel. I guess I feel like that about my Les Pauls and stuff like that too. Like I like a guitar to be set up nice no matter what, but I can play on different types of necks and different type of different feeling guitars and get used to it now easier than I used to. So and probably most of these guys you're talking about, I mean, what Mayer, I don't know, because he tends to use his main, his guitar, although he also says like, he kind of, because a lot of people would talk about the radius of his guitar and kind of bitch about it or something, or say, oh man, it's really radiused, and then he'd kind of make fun of that, like who cares, like, but I don't know if he like really prefers that certain neck shape or not. I mean, those guitars play really good, his guitars. Rusty, I would say, Rusty Anderson from Paul McCartney's band, he's probably, I mean, he's kind of a guitar nerd for sure. He really likes, he geeks out on gear and he's really into the, like he's a pretty particular guy, I would say, probably. But that said, he does play a lot of different guitars, but they're really nice guitars. I'm talking about like 59 335s and stuff here, so his guitars are going to be set up impeccably and stuff, I'm sure, just the way he likes them. He's not a guy that likes like, trashy kind of, hard to play instruments or anything like that. Brian's an interesting cat. He's got an amazing guitar collection, beautiful guitars. This is Brian Ray. Brian, for tones, tends to go for, I find, very vintage, slightly saggy kind of compression sort of tones. Like I think he really likes, for example, I mean, think about Neil Young's tone on Cinnamon Girl. I think that's the kind of distortion Brian really likes. That real, like, he likes it to bog down a little bit and stuff, and that sag, and so like a very bluesy kind of, if he's a Marshall guy, it's a JTM 45. I think, that's his kind of, just tonally an aesthetic. That's what he really likes, is that very vintage, sort of thing. So I know that about him. Not getting a little bit off track, but Tim, I think can play on different types of we see him play different guitars all the time, and I think he likes different guitars, but he probably likes them to be set up reasonably. In his studio at his house, he's got a lot. I mean, there's like at least 20 guitars in that room at any given time, all different kinds of guitars. And I missed him. I gotta hit him up. I just don't get to see him anymore, and I that sucks. So I gotta hit him up and maybe go out there and bug him to let me come out to his house. Maybe we can do another show. I would love to just do a one-off with him, like a catch-up kind of show or something. It's been forever. Maybe we could do a live stream, like do this or something at his place, and just talk like this. I'm gonna propose that. But anyways, he, with his tones, tends to go for that semi-broken up, like, where it's slightly crunchy when the guitar volume's on 10, and then like he can roll down to 7 or use his volume pedal to roll back, and then it's clean. That's how and then he'll hit a pedal for more. So he likes that, and then probably appreciates the different character of playing different guitars, different pickups, different neck shapes and stuff like that, and the variety. So yeah, man. John's talking about risotto. I like risotto. I like risotto a lot. Some good stuff. Since I don't eat gluten, Italian food's tough sometimes, but risotto is generally fair game since it's rice. Yeah, yeah, yeah. All right, what else we got here? You guys are talking about Coors Light? Let's not talk about that. That's just offensive. Mayor likes the very round radiuses. Yeah, he does. Which is cool. I mean, his guitars, I've played it. It still plays good, even though it's got a real round radius. Another person that really likes them is Landau. He tends to really like, the vintage. It's probably just because he's used to it. But yeah. Anyone else pinky slip off the high E on their Wolfgang? That's interesting. Could just be a spacing thing. If they're too close to, or if the fret's too rolled, sometimes, it's a fine line. Yeah. What else we got here? What's the radius on a Wolfgang? I think it's probably compound and probably quite flat. Either that or it's a 16 straight or something. But I would guess it's probably a compound. I'm not 100% sure about that, though. I have one here, but they have changed a little bit, too. The necks are a little different than they used to be, I think, over the years. Yeah. Have you heard of Robbie McIntosh? I have, yeah. He played with Pretenders from 82 to 87 and McCartney from 89 to 93. I mean, when I think about some of the Pretenders that he would have recorded on, there's some pretty cool stuff. I mean, isn't Middle of the Road probably him? Is that Robbie McIntosh that played that solo? Let me take a look at that right now. I want to know that, because that is one of the greatest rock guitar solos of all time. Middle of the Road Pretenders. I love that solo so much. There's going to be a wiki about that, of course, and we are going to look at the personnel and see who played on it. Where is it? Chrissy Hine, producers. It's not telling us. Well, when did it come out? Middle of the Road. 83. Yeah, so that's him, right? Somebody tell me I'm not crazy. Yep, there it is. Robbie McIntosh. That's right. Great solo. You know that, like in the middle of the road? So great. Okay, sorry. I get excited. So that's good stuff, man. Good stuff. Yeah, that is a great solo on that Pretender song. It is really good. If you haven't listened to it for a while, go check it out again. It's like the solo in My Sharona or some of Elliot Easton's solos, just the perfect solos for the songs that are so cool. The phrasing and the note choice and and it's a long solo too, the Middle of the Road solo. It's like, they really gave him the moment to shine there. So cool. Some of these unsung guitar heroes, Robbie would, fall into that category. Folks that did stuff in the 80s, because I love the Pretenders, man. I loved it, and I was around when that stuff came out. It was so great. Of course, Robbie Blunt would be another Robbie that, I mean, the stuff that he played on, Ship of Fools and all that, Robert Plant. I'm in the mood for a melody, glang, 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 all that great stuff. God, so cool. And not classic rock per se, like 70s, what we think of as blues, it's like, love that. Yeah, man, so good. Thoughts on a semi-hollow EVH Wolf has seen playing well? Well, it's a natural progression since, he is now the face and the driving force behind that brand, I would say, and he loves 335s, so it would seem like, it's a cool thing. I think it's cool. Yeah, they should do it, and it looks like he's going to do it. Why not? Folks like those. Fuzz placement suggestions. I'm currently running it last in line into the front. Sounds awful. Well, don't put it there. No, you got to put fuzz up front, generally, in front of other things, not last. Try it as close to the possible as you can to the front of your chain, and if it's a fuzz face type, it'll be affected by buffers and won't sound good, or many types of fuzzes. I mean, the other one I'm thinking of, the tone bender. They don't like buffers either, really. I don't think. Whereas a big muff is fine with a buffer in front of it. So it really depends on the design of the fuzz. So you plug your guitar right into it, make sure that sounds good, get the sound, and then start adding it to your rig and adding other things and see where it gets screwed up, if anything. Yeah. Going back through the chat here just a little bit. Who else have we got here? I was going to look back and see if Angus responded. I was wondering what he was using when he was playing with Ultimate Queen Celebration. Yeah, Modern Vintage says everything feels very different. A great setup is the most critical. Yeah, that's correct. If you're using vintage guitars all the time, you're seeing guys like, they're not going to mess with the neck shapes and things, or even probably, if they don't have to refret, they won't. So it's all about the setup and getting used to each guitar as a special, unique. Generally speaking, folks that are into vintage instruments are, going to be a little bit more reluctant to modify and that kind of thing. They're going to buy the instrument because it speaks to them as is and use it as a thing. Whereas with new guitars, many times people want to mess around and try different pickups and stuff like that. So. Oh, that's interesting. Angus says he used the atomic amplifier. That's interesting. So did you use the stock? Is it like the AC30 model or something in there, and then the an AC30 style cab IR or something? So I wonder what you used. That said, even though we didn't have cabs on stage when you and I were both doing that gig, it sure was fun, right? Playing with Mark, playing Queen music with Mark is. I was like, if I play Queen songs, I want to play them with that guy. It's amazing. So much fun. Yeah. Okay, there's another super duper chat there. I'm going to grab that. That's from Javier. Hey, man, what's going on? You ever find a switcher board in the way for studio use? 2 separate boards, a better idea. You mean like with my Musicom lab on it? Not really. I like using it in the studio. That said, in the studio, the way I work in here, sometimes I don't even use it. I mean, I have for a number of, for at least a year or something, I've had that pedal board down at my feet. So my main road board I've had on the floor, and I'll plug into it and then go out into my amp switcher and out to the amps. And that way I can integrate some of the pedals and stuff. If I need a fuzz, it's right there, that kind of thing. But I wouldn't say I find it in the way or anything. The ultimate setup for the studio is like, because I know some of these guys that have crazy, like Oliver Lieber comes to mind, rigs where they've got racks in the studio, big refrigerators with pedal drawers, and they can literally patch in any pedal in line at any time. So you plug into an interface and come out into your amp switcher. But then you've got, RJM or whatever switchers with pedals in line, and you go, let's use I want to use the Echo Rec and the, this compressor or whatever today, or let's try this fuzz into this, and you can just patch in literally these dudes have like 50 pedals in drawers, in big racks with all of them plugged into loops and loop switcher, and they can just get any pedal into any amp. Like Oliver's studio is he's a successful songwriter, producer, drummer, guitar player guy that I know that has this crazy studio with an old Neve, and all the amps are mic'd all the time. He's got multiple cabinets that he could use amp switcher pedals in, all done by Friedman. It's an amazing rig. So that's the ultimate way, but that requires a budget. That's for sure. Have you read Greg Renoff's book? I haven't actually, but I would like to read it. Yeah, I think that's probably true. He didn't go full bore time. And most of the demos that I've heard were, I should say bootlegs, not demos, but the live club recordings. I mean, when you listen to him in 76 and stuff, he's not really tapping that much. And it was really cool because he's like doing a lot of fast picking, kind of like, the more the wide finger spread kind of fast picking stuff and everything. And really amazing playing. His playing in like 74, 75, 76 is like some of those, Backyard Party or those sorts of recordings are just unbelievable. That I've heard. There's the one from the Hilton in Pasadena or something. I'm just gonna reply to a text here. Yeah. Lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, the Hilton in Pasadena, I think, or was it Hilton or Hyatt or something? There's a live bootleg you can find from a hotel. I think it was like the Hilton or something. It's like amazing. He's playing on there. Like he does some improv stuff that's just like long extended solos. He's just ripping, and not a lot of tapping, like you say. Actually, just more, just kind of, it's really cool. Yeah. What else we got here? Let's see. Never tried to get a Timmy style pedal for boosting a Marshall style amp. Well, supposedly this pedal, a Jan Ray, is similar, right, to Timmy. Treble pot's different or something, but it's a really similar design, evidently. These sound great in front of a Marshall. It's not a sound I use a lot, but it is cool. Dave Friedman's the first one that pointed it out to me, actually, where he said, that pedal sounds really cool. It's not, it's maybe like a fatter tube screamer or a tube screamer that doesn't attenuate so much bass, but it does have a complex, kind of cool layered distortion when you play it into a Marshall style amp. It's pretty neat. Pretty great. Yeah. What else we got here? Let's see. There's a super chat. Has John Sir ever discussed bigger headstock leading to more sustained tonal differences? I've heard more wood on necks and headstocks make a difference. I think they do. I don't know about more sustained. There's always a balance thing. Like, you don't want the guitar to get heavy either. Like even my Sir Alt T is a little unbalanced because it's got a hollow Swamp Ash body. So it's like a F holes, and that's got a normal Sir headstock on it, and it tends to dive a little bit, and just kind of a little frustrating or whatever. So you go to those big headstocks. That's the only trade-off. If more weight up there, it's going to tend to. I don't like that feeling when I'm constantly having to lift the neck. That said, it's manageable on that guitar, but any more than that. So I think a standard Strat headstock's just fine. But if you add mass to a headstock, it definitely gives more sustain. I do believe that. Gil, I always say his name wrong. Now I'm paranoid about Gil. I always say Urine, but it's not. It's Uron or something, or Uron. I don't know. I feel like he never corrected me, but other people do. Anyway, one time I was hanging out with him, and we were talking about headless guitars and stuff. And he's like, "Bite the headstock." And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Put your teeth on it, like on his Les Paul style axe." So I did. And he strums the strings, and it's like in your teeth. He's like, "Do you really want to cut that off?" He's like, "You feel that?" He's like, "There's a lot going on there, He always has a way of making a point, But it's kind of true. There's a lot of vibration up there and a lot of mass and stuff where it's, there's stuff going on that really affects the tone. So evening, I think it should be known that if you get into guitar properly, you become a bit of a geek and hopefully an audio engineer. Maybe it's the other way around. Thanks, Andy. Thanks for the super chat, my friend. And yeah, I mean, I've always had, I always say the engineering part of it, or the kind of the recording part of it, was always like the hobbyist aspect for me, because it's like I don't consider myself like a great engineer or something, but I do enjoy it. I really enjoy that, like trying to get good sounds and even miking drums and how to get good. And I guess I've got a handle on at least, I mean, I know my way around a studio and like getting decent drum. I mean, I could set up. I've done it. I mean, drum sounds and bass sounds, guitar sounds, a whole band if I have to, and at least get solid stuff down on tape. Mixing, I mean, I've mixed a lot of my own. You guys have heard a lot of the stuff that I've mixed. I still feel like I've got a lot to learn, with mixing, and like I could stand to, just with proper EQ and stuff like that, and how to really make things fit in a mix and sit and stuff, and especially vocals. Like that's a one that I don't have because I do mostly guitar-based stuff. So, but it's definitely a part of music making that I really enjoy. Production engineering, almost just as much as playing guitar. I actually sort of see it as all part of the same thing. I mean, it's all toward one end goal of making something that's hopefully a piece of art that's fun to listen to, or rewarding to listen to, at least, So, yeah. Thank you again for the super chat, man. I appreciate it. Thank you all you guys for the super chats and for being here. I really appreciate it. I'm going to stick around another 20 minutes, and then I'm going to split and go get some lunch. Then I'm going to finish this video for this Vibe pedal, the Vibe machine from Drybell. Yeah. Yeah. This is interesting. What John said is you have to make the resonant frequency of the neck to be outside the guitar range so as not take away any of the string energy. That's deeper than I understand, That's interesting. Yeah. Okay, what else have we got here? Love the Rat, and it was my high gain sound for years through a twin, but recently got the Friedman BEOD, and it's phenomenal with the Les Paul and the Strat and the Tele. Yeah, Rat is kind of the precursor distortion to probably, it's a little more primitive, but I always kind of liked a Rat too. I could get good sounds out of a Rat. I like Rats on bass too. Good pedal with its the ability to kind of shut down the high end on that pedal with the tone control was always really helpful, I found, for especially if you're plugging in a Fender with a bright cap on it. A pedal that you could get. It was a versatile pedal. You can get a decent sound with a Rat out of a lot of different amps, I think. Have you read Rudy Sarzow's book? I haven't. Going Off the Rails or something, right? It's called. I would like to read that. Yeah, I'm looking to use the DI of my PT15IR. Can I use a TRS to XLR adapter? Yeah. Yeah, just a standard configuration. Just pick up a basic TRS to XLR cable and it'll work fine. If otherwise it'll flip one of the pins or something, and then the polarity might be weird or something. But if you just get a standard TRS to XLR cable, you can order one off Amazon or something, it'll work fine. Yep. How do you think neck through guitar construction affects attack and tone? I don't really know, because I don't have, I own one neck through guitar, but it's not even set up and hasn't been for years. I know, it used to be a thing that people kind of really, believed in the late 70s, early 80s, but there's very few examples. Okay, yeah, I guess the Firebird were Randy Rhoads guitars neck throughs? Like some of those Jacksons, were those done as a neck through with the center block being part of the neck and then the wings put on? Maybe. But it's like a very few guitars were really neck throughs, so I don't have a great angle on that, or like a way to, compare to other, I guess BC Rich, probably, right? Some of them. Most guitars were set neck, that design, that have a glue, a neck that's not a bolt on, like 98%. So, yeah. What else have we got here? Looking back through. If it doesn't make the snare rattle, it isn't loud enough. That's true. The snare rattling is part of the sound, right? Yeah. This is good advice here, is where to put a fuzz in line. Just try stuff, but I like fuzz before drive. Me too. My fuzzes are all, like on my pedal board, my fuzz is the first. It's in loop 2 of my board. Loop 1's a compressor, and I would never have it on at the same time as the fuzz. Loop 2 is, I'm looking down at the board like that's my board. My board's still in transit from England, so that's not my board. I just look down I'm so used to having it down there on the floor. So I have to think about it. Loop 1 is a compressor, and loop 2 is my muff style fuzz. Yeah. And I would, yeah, fuzz is early, generally speaking. And once again, this is all really, really, really dependent on buffers. So, if you've got a pedal board that's buffered at all, it doesn't even matter if you put it in loop 1. If your switcher's buffered, then it's going to be screwed up in loop 1. You have to put it in front of the pedal board, like in front of the switcher. Does that make sense? So, on my board, I've got the Friedman buffer bay, which is like a patch bay. And that's the first thing that the guitar plugs into, but you can defeat the buffer. Coming out of the buffer bag, it goes to a Digitech Freakout and a Dry Bell Unit 76 pedal and my wah, and then goes into my switcher. But say I want to use a fuzz face or something, I can always pull the Dry Bell or the Freakout off the board and put the fuzz on there and have that be first in line, and then in front of the switcher, and then turn off the buffer on the buffer bay. And then I'm able to use like a fuzz face with my board and get the proper, or a treble booster, a Rangemaster style boost. They don't want to have a buffer in front of them. Univibes, this pedal, pretty versatile when it comes to that. This pedal has all kinds of there's a pot here that lets you vary the input impedance for a custom setting on here, because vibes were always traditionally kind of sensitive to buffers as well and to input impedance. So you always had to put the vibe first. But these, long story short, you can kind of work around that with something like this. Those are the 3 pedals, really. Certain fuzzes, basically tone bender style, fuzz face style fuzzes, univibes, and Rangemaster treble boosters. All those pedals don't work well with the buffer generally in front. Not too many others where you need to worry about it, but those are the main group, of stuff where it's really dependent on the impedance coming out of the guitar pickups and that sort of thing. What do you think about Mark Tremonti? Killer player, great tone, and such a nice guy. He's a very nice guy. I've met him couple times, and he's always very nice to me. And I really like that he likes, he's a guitar nerd too, in the same way that like he's always trying to get better, I think, and working on his playing and songwriting stuff. So you saw a progression even after, like he became famous in Creed, right? Really not a Creed fan. But Alter Bridge, it was like, oh, it's interesting. It's like, because Miles, I like Miles. And then he kept working on his playing gut. It was like, oh, he's getting a bit better and better guitar player. It wasn't like he wasn't a good guitar player to start with, but he seems like a really cool dude, So really nice guy. Have I tried his PRS amp? A little bit. I don't remember where, but I tried the 15 somewhere. I thought it sounded pretty cool. I don't really remember it very well, to be honest, but I know I played it somewhere. Just the 15. I never tried the bigger one, I don't think. I have tried models, like in the modeling world of, whether it was in the Axe Effects or Line 6, I can't remember, but versions of the bigger PRS head, which sounded pretty cool, I thought. I think I tried the Waves PRS model of his. Isn't there a Waves plugin that, models his amp? But yeah. Okay. What else we got here? 84 Explorer was neck through. Sorry said set, but loved it, but there was no changing necks. Was it a neck through, though? An Explorer? Those aren't Explorers glue in? Or maybe they did one that was a neck through? That's possible. But I'm under the impression that a V and a Explorer, that at least the majority of them are set neck, not through neck, like a Firebird. Firebird was, I thought, the only Gibson that they really did that on, but I don't know. Let's see. Still soon for the new PT Signature guitar. It's sitting right there. Yeah, I guess I haven't officially cleared with them talking about any of the things that we've been working on, but you've basically seen it at this point, right? I'm using it in videos. Show it to you. Didn't I have it on here last week, or did I not? Look at how sexy that thing is. I'm loving Inca Silver, man. I'm just an Inca fan. Look at that. Wow, I'm just getting lost in my own. I don't want to talk anymore. I just want to look at this guitar. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Wow. Damn. Yeah. Yeah. What's my sound? I don't know. This guitar into a optimized Marshall style amp. You know, somebody that's taken that circuit and rocked it. That thing is delicious, isn't it? Come on, look at that. Isn't Inca cool? What a cool color, because there's just a little bit of gold in it. When you move it around, it's like in the right light. It's so cool. It's such a great color. So a lot of people thought this guitar, I should just actually show them at the same time. A lot of people thought this guitar was the EMG guitar. But you'll see the differences. Right? Rosewood board, EMGs. I gotta say, you know, seeing these beside one another, I think we've done a really, really nice job on this pick guard, because I've never done this before. But look how sexy the new pick guard is. Come on now. That's pretty damn cool, right? It's got a flow to it, and like a, you know, John did he spent a lot of time drawing it. He did a really nice job on it. Just basically told him what I wanted, and he tweaked, and as he does, and he was able to get a really cool lines, you know, going. So I had to fight a little bit to get this ring on here, because originally we had no ring, but I think it looks great with it, and I think he agrees. It was a little bit of a battle, though. It just filled out the look a little bit with the guard and stuff, and yeah, and then it's cool. Come on, right? Anyway, yeah, very beautiful. It says Dirty Love. Thank you, appreciate it. How did you get John to use ebony on a maple and alder guitar? I think he just was like, oh, whatever you guys want. He is kind of against it, but to be honest, I mean, it looks great, right, on this guitar, and they've been doing it on guitars for a while, you know, custom order. He isn't the biggest fan of ebony, because he thinks sometimes with single coils it can be bright, but I love the sound of the single coils. So I don't know. I think maybe, I don't know. You know, John's got opinions like anybody, and I've got opinions, and it's like, generally it's like Guthrie once said about him. He's like, you know, his opinions are generally right, which I have to say is generally true, you know. But in this case, I was like, come on, like, because rosewood can be so light sometimes, and on this guitar with the kind of the aesthetic, I wanted the real dark neck. I mean, just look how cool it looks with the, you know, the black headstock and everything, and so, and it sounds great and it feels great. So this fella says, nice, too expensive for me. We haven't, there's no price. I haven't told you how much it is, or if it even exists. So Braxall says, if fuzzes do not like to be buffered, what is the effect sound like when it is bad? It'll sound kind of out of control, and sometimes it'll screech and just won't be controllable. So the fuzz will be nice and warm without the buffer, and then you put a buffer in front, and it goes like kind of like super high-endy, and like you roll down the volume, and it just gets noisy. Sounds all weird, you know, when it does that kind of, and it doesn't sound right. And as soon as there's no buffer, it's warm and kind of creamy, and so that's the difference generally. You know, out of control and bright and unpleasant versus warm, creamy, proper fuzz. All things tone. Hello, good sir. I did a little video with this fella over in the UK. You can tell us about your channel, All Things Tone, on YouTube. If you search for that plus Pete Thorn Rig Rundown 2022, it'll probably pop up. But I haven't watched the video yet, so I haven't seen it, but hopefully it's cool. Where I, you know, show my whole rig on tour and stuff, talk about the guitar. If anybody wants to check it out. after this. Yeah. What else we got here? Same wood combo, Steven says. Yeah, it works, right? Same wood combos. It works great. Works great. Not a problem. What do you use to oil the fretboard? I never do. I never do. Let's see. I want it for no price. I haven't talked about a price, but you can't have it for no price. Actually, you can't have it at all. This is mine. Get your own guitar. Yeah. What else we got here? Pickguard looks more aggressive than a standard Strat. Yeah, just a different, different design. Trying to think along the lines of, I had thought about on this, like trying to do maybe a split here and this be chrome, like on a jazz bass or something, but that was going to be expensive. And actually, the fellow brought up price. I haven't said anything about this guitar, what's happening with it, but if it is something that's happening, one of the things about it would be I wouldn't want it to be too expensive. What's too expensive? Different for everybody, but I wouldn't want, once you start doing things like custom plates and stuff, like, custom fabricating things, it adds to the cost of things. And my existing signature model, which I still love, by the way, and adore, and is great. It is a little bit more complex to produce than something like this, let's say, because it's got painted neck, for example. It's got the black on the back of the neck that is, has to be just so. On most of the versions of at least two, the blue one and the red one have to be painted on the back of the neck, the black kind of matte finish. It's hard, actually. And then the body is, of course, mahogany with a maple top, scrape binding. All that adds a little bit to the cost. With scrape binding, it's it's another step, another process. Maple top on a mahogany body, it's more of a complex process. So all that stuff. So with this guitar, this is an alder body with a maple neck and a ebony board. It's simple, so that was part of my concern, was all that good stuff. So more on it later, but anyways. Yeah. What else we got here? Let's see. I used boiled linseed oil on my open pore fingerboards. That's interesting. Sounds like it probably worked quite well. What else we got? This guy uses finger ease on his rosewoods. I don't know if, I don't generally oil necks. It's just not something I do. Occasionally, I've got some stuff here. Okay, let me see what I've got here for. I think I might have used it like once in a blue moon. No, that's Elmer's clear glue. That's not what that's for. What's this? That's polish. Guitar Labs fingerboard conditioner. Look at that. Gobi Labs. What's this stuff? Never going to be able to read it. You guys could probably read it better than me. Not focused in, but anyway, it's this stuff. I may have used this a little bit. The bottle's not totally full, so you spray that on your rosewood. I'm sure it's just like some sort of oil. I sound like I don't know anything about what I'm talking about, right? Because I really don't. Let's see. You are a big hair 80s guitarist trying to sing for the first time. Unfortunately, I sound like Brad Roberts' twin brother. It's not good for metal. Any advice for a vocal processor? I'd just suggest vocal lessons before processing. Watch some of Ken Tamplin Vocal Academy. He's a great singer and seems to have some cool free stuff up on YouTube. Ken Tamplin, is that how you say his name? I think so. Watch some of his stuff. See if he helps. Have you used York Audio Impulses? Yes, I did a video for the Friedman cabinet that he did that you can watch. I'm a really big fan of York IRs. I think he does great work. Yeah. What else we got here? Yeah, lemon oil for fingerboards. There we go.
did you hear any demos of the new Line 6 Catalyst amps? I haven't. I saw that they brought them out, but I haven't. I'm not the most interested in modeling amps, to be honest. It's just, I don't know. It's not really my thing, you know. Can I get a PT spec guitar? Well, more on that soon. More on that soon. Have you or John ever thought about doing a semi-hollow version of your signature with one F-hole? I'm really not a big fan of that. The F-hole on the Strat thing, like the Eric Johnson one and stuff, just looks weird to me. Not for me. So, yeah, this could be why. Lauren says SoCal is fairly easy on guitars. I think that's true. You know, it's dry here, but it's not dry like desert dry, you know. I mean, it's a desert, but it doesn't strike me as being like when I go to Vegas or when I go to Canada, even in the wintertime, it's just like dry, like so dry, you know, fret sprout and all that. You don't really get too much of that here, I find. I haven't noticed that in LA, and I've been here 30 years. So, yeah. I prefer the Sur reactive load box over all others. Do you? Yeah, basically. You know, there's other good ones out there, but it's really it's the safest bet as far as a super close to, you know, the Fryette is great too. I find the power station really good. And I use that every day in here for my amps going on the way to the cabinet. So that's you know, I would say the Fryette and the Sur are both, you know, really good. And of course, Sur reactive load is what I have in my PT15. So, all right, now I'll go like 5 more minutes, then I'm going to split you guys and go get some lunch and stuff. This has been a nice one. It's been a fun one. I haven't thought about all the bullshit in the world for a couple hours, which has been nice. So thanks for the distraction, the welcome distraction. I appreciate it. You all being here. Is Ken Tamplin Sammy Hagar's cousin? I don't know. Oh yeah. What would you take to a simple club jam? I would probably take my PT15 and you know, I've got generally speaking, I've got a small pedal board kicking around at any given time that's got a few pedals on it. Although I really don't right now. Like I don't have I should make another one that's a cool little board that's just got some cool sounds in it. I've been kind of Dave Friedman in his shop. He's got this little board that he built that's like this big. That's for him, actually. He told me the other day, and it's just got a couple of the Boss, the modulation and the delay on it, the DD500 and the MM500 or whatever the heck it's called, and then a Boss octave and a little baby RJM switcher and another couple of pedals. Just it's very simple, but it's powerful. I would love a little pedal board like that. It's like a small version of, you know, my current one. Smaller version would be neat. So maybe one of these days I'll build something like that and have it around. But yeah, that and a PT15. Are you going to demo the new version of the Scream Honey? If he asks me to, I didn't know there was a new one. You guys know things before me sometimes. My knees hurt. Patrick Carroll. Patrick, did I miss a question from you? I will definitely answer. Sorry, I didn't see it. Simpwood says, is the SL68 still available? I cannot find it anywhere. I'm sure it is. I know that, you know, supply chain stuff has been tough on, you know, with certain parts and things like that. So it could just be tough, but it's definitely still available. And, you know, it's not like they're stopping making it or something. Patrick, yeah, resend your super chat, but don't send it as a super chat. Just ask me in the bottom here and I'll take a look and see what you asked. Where are you, Patrick? Where are you? Let's see here. I'm watching the chat for you in the bottom for your question. I'm sorry if I missed your question. Yeah. Braxall says, when you say you use the Fryette every day, do you use the power section? Yeah, I use it on the way to the cabinet out of my room. So my amps are going into the Fryette, getting loaded down, and then reamp back up to a, you know, like maybe half volume or something going into the cab in the other room. So I do use the power section all the time in here. Yeah. Man, we got 415 people online. It's hard for me to leave because it's like you guys come and you're all here, and it's like it's more people than the whole rest of the show, you know, at any given time. So maybe I should hang another 10 minutes. Using wah, freak out, and drop pedal before hitting quad cortex. Adding switcher for gain pedals. Should I use these in the switcher or keep as is? Use the freak out and the wah. I mean, the drop is questionable. The freak out and the wah I would put in front because you don't need to put those in loops or in a switcher. You know what I mean? You can just put those in front, and then that'll be a nice board you've got going there. But yeah, I put my freak out and my wah in front. Those are the two pedals that aren't in loops on my switcher, plus a unit 76 for just getting a boost if I want to kick on a pedal for boost. The drop pedal you could put in a loop on the switcher. The other two I wouldn't. Yeah. Yeah, you know, reason being because like they're kind of momentary things, right? You want to turn on a wah when you want the wah. You want to turn on the freak out like at any given second. You want to hit a note and then just without thinking about it, hit that pedal momentary for feedback and then release it, right? So you wouldn't want to do that extra step turning on a switcher, and so yeah. Where is Patrick with his question? Patrick, there you are. I wanted to know if he could share his "Give Me All Your Lovin' Tone." Oh, you mean, dude? It's really just the PT15. Okay, I used the PT15, and I think I might have had a tube screamer on too for that kind of mid-rangey. You know what I mean? So did you saw a show then, right? We played that song in the classic rock show set. Can't afford a QC. What exactly is tapped from his PT15 line out if using cab subs from the QC? So it's the full frequency sound of the amp that, including it's a tap off the power section of the amp. So it's the whole sound of the amplifier basically, without speaker sim, goes into the quad cortex at line level, and then gets the speaker sim added and some effects. But it basically sounds like on that song what's coming out of the cabinet, because I wouldn't be even adding really any effects for that particular song. So I think what I did was it's basically the PT15 on channel 2 with the gain on about 5, but then I added a bit of a volume up, gain down tube screamer to give it that mid, that a tube with the lows lopped off, because that kind of sounded more like that 80s ZZ Top sound to me. Fairly distorted and grindy and kind of mid-rangey, that kind of thing. Yes, sir. Tube Screamer Marshall, really. Have you played a Veritas guitar? Am I saying that right? They seem to be the holy grail in the praise and worship community. I have not. Don't know that one. I don't go to church, so I don't know about those guitars, I guess. I don't know, honestly. I don't remember the last time I was, probably when I was in Europe and walking around, beautiful cathedrals, but I'm not generally, I'm here. This is my church. I'm here every Sunday. Don't be mad at me, praise and worship people. Reza says, no questions. Just wanted to thank you for your Sunday live that is keeping me entertained while I'm stuck in JFK. Oh man, sorry to hear that. That's no fun airport to be stuck in. It's sort of very, needs an update, doesn't it? It's a little bit third world, that airport, all things considered. Thank you for the super chat, dude. Thanks for doing these live sessions and for being so polite. Oh man, thank you guys for being wonderful and being here. I appreciate it. I do. The Church of Tone. That's what we should call the show. It's Sundays, right? Pete Thorn's Church of Tone. Praise the tone. All hail the tone. Hi from Portugal. What's up, man? Only been there once. Nice place, though. Nice place. I found Jesus. He was hiding behind the drapes. I found Jesus. He was in a PAF humbucker in a 59 Les Paul. No, I kid. Yeah. Braxall got a Fryette. Love how the tubes warm up the sound more. Yeah, it's a great sounding unit. The big fan of the power station. It's good. Rex Brown on the next Tone Talk. That'll be good. from Pantera. Rex seems like a very nice guy. I've spoken with him a little bit. Cool guy. Let's see. Does wah go after overdrive? Morello would say yes. You can see me do it in the Tom Morello video, actually, if you want to hear the difference between the Power 50 pedal from MXR, which is his signature drive. You can hear me demonstrate it in front and after, wah in front and wah after drive, and you can hear the difference. Most people would put it in front. He uses it after. It's a much more dramatic effect coming after. It's cool. Some people want that drama. Other people don't want drama in their lives. Somebody's saying go eat. I probably should. Probably go eat some lunch. I'm having fun though. Always have fun with you guys. All things tone with the super chat. Planning on doing a dive on fuzz wah. Bit of fun thinking of picking up some pedal history in the way. Any vintage fuzz wah recommendations? Fuzz wah. Like the Morley? Or that's the only one I can think of really. I used to have this Dunlop that had a boost circuit in it. It was kind of cool. But the Morley is the main one I can think of. What's another fuzz wah? That's the main one I think of. Anybody else got one? Fuzz wah? Can fuzz go after wah and freak out, says Braxall. So the long story short, I don't know. I'm not sure if the freak out is true bypass. I think it is. As long as it's true bypass, if it's a fuzz face or a tone bender style that doesn't really like buffers, you should be okay. If your wah is true bypass and if your freak out's true bypass, the only problem with the true bypass wah is that I would put fuzz before it, to be honest, because it just, I like wahs that have a buffer circuit in them. Otherwise, you're going to get high end loss. Like, you know, a wah that's not true bypass and isn't, sorry, a wah that's true bypass, they can tend to have a loading effect. I've found, maybe not all of them, but for the most part, like I like wahs that are like, you know, if you've got a buffer circuit or whatever in them, because then they don't suck your tone. So I think most of my wahs are buffered. I'm not sure, or I run a buffer in front, but either that or I run my I'm trying to think of, oh shit, I look down, my pedal board's not here, so I can't. But generally speaking, I'll run, okay, when I did the Classic Rock Show in 2020, because I didn't want to have any screwing around, I wanted a true fuzz face and a Hendrix CCN because we did Voodoo Child in the set. So I ran another board in front of my little pedal board, and then I went into the buffer on the Friedman buffer bay. And that way I knew that there was nothing in line that was a problem. So I ran a Jimi Hendrix mini fuzz face and anything else on that little board? I don't remember. I can't recall. But anyway, the main thing is that I had a separate little board for this fuzz that was in line in front of my pedal board, and then it wasn't getting, I'm just really adamant about a fuzz face. You can't have a buffer in front of it. So when you say that, can fuzz, if you've got a big muff, yes, it can go after a wah and a freak out. It doesn't matter. Generally speaking, though, a freak out is true bypass. I think this is not a problem. I would probably run the fuzz before the wah, and then have a good wah that's got a buffer circuit in it that's not gonna or like a, I don't know if, I don't know. You want a buffer before your friggin' wah, though, is what I'm trying to say, because otherwise it'll suck tone. Generally speaking, people talk about wah tone suck, high end loss. You know, guitars for your project. Yes, fully intended on using wah in front of Cortex, but what about a BB preamp or a clean boost like a Keeley Katana? Keeley Katana is a really nice pedal. Loop or pre-quad Cortex? Which FR do you prefer if you had to choose? I like the Atomic cab. It's like a wedge. It's the best sounding FR I've tried. Most, like, it's really, really, really good sounding, actually, with a huge sweet spot and not boomy or woofy or anything. It just sounds like a great studio monitor sitting in front of you on the floor. Like, kind of by far, that's my favorite. Not the cheapest, worth it. Trust me. Okay, but your other question here, a BB preamp or a clean boost like a Katana? Yeah, put those, I would say, in a
loop switcher, pre-quad Cortex in a loop switcher. Does that make sense? I hope so. Both those, BB preamp, Katana, get a loop switcher, pre-quad Cortex, then go in the quad Cortex for your time-based effects and your amp stuff or whatever, and then out to, yeah. Is my bad horsey crap? No, it sounds good. I like bad horsey. I like it. I mean, Steve gets cool sounds. I have space for maybe one more pedal. Unit 67, Lunar Module, Snow White Auto Wop, Dry Bell Vibe Machine version 3, 74 phase 90, Retrosonic Flanger C2W. Let me see here. I don't know. You kind of got a lot there. C2W, KOT, Klon, Memory Lane Junior, Wet Reverb. I'm just looking at your pedals right now. I'm thinking Sonic Flanger C2W. I mean, it's pretty cool. You got everything kind of represented there. Did you ever use tremolo? Memory Lane Junior. I mean, you kind of, I don't know, dude. You got a lot of cool stuff there. King of Tone, the Klon. Maybe I don't know, man. What I would add to that? What about a fuzz? What's a lunar module? Is that a fuzz? Because I'm not even sure. But maybe you want a muff on there. Be pretty cool. Or, like we've been talking about, a fuzz face or something. Might be neat. But you got your chorus, you got your delay, you got your wet reverb. Kind of got all that covered. And you definitely got a lot of modulation. So a fuzz of some variety. What else we got here? Any experience with the newer Park Mitch Colby amps? They're cool. There's no doubt about it. Well made. That guy knows his stuff. Like a bulletproof new Marshall. He's an artist, for sure. He builds nice stuff. The Jimmy Page amps he did were amazing. I've heard one. It was like with an old telly, and it's cool, like really cool. What else? I need a Poly Blue, that new one. Yeah, it's cool. I did a video for that. That's a massive sounding thing. Best Eagles riff, probably Life in the Fast Lane, right? Or, I mean, as far as riffs go, or the solo to Hotel California, Victim of Love is pretty damn cool, but it's not really the riff. It's just cool. Life in the Fast Lane, great riff. Timeless. Why Inca Silver? Why not Inca Silver? Look at it. Why? That's the perfect angle, right? Guitar photos where you can see like the right here and the light, and then up here you get the ooh, it looks like ooh. I've been looking at guitars my whole life, just going, God damn, that's positively sexy. Yeah. We love it, don't we? Yeah. All right, guys, I should probably split and go get some food and stuff. We're down to 368 people, dropped off a little bit. People get tired of my BS. I'll be here next week, as long as we're all still here next week. We can only hope, right? So everybody say the Serenity Prayer this week. Give me the wisdom to, what is it? Give me the, I can't remember. It's all about, like, don't worry about stuff that you can't fix, change the stuff that you can fix, and have the wisdom to know the difference. Oh, brother. You guys take it easy. Be safe out there. And let's all, I'm not a prayer. It's just not how I grew up, but let's all pray for peace. Screw this fighting crap.
people swinging their dicks around, a bunch of jerks. Just like, give me a break. Everybody stop and leave people alone. That you don't have any, they got no beef with you. Isn't your country big enough already? Love you all. Everybody take care. Have a great week.